How are you thinking about those other players, the Ubers, the Lyfts, the Googles, the Amazon? I mean, do you feel like they're coming with solutions at this point? Or are they still sort of um, just selling the things that they have, saying, okay, we've got a lot of really great tools and we're looking for partners who are going to help us to figure out how to apply this stuff?
Well, listen, it's a big group that you described. I sort of have to put them in a bunch of categories. I think the Uber and Lyfts are easy to pair up against each other. I think they are, I get the sense they're still trying to decide, do they want to be a service provider to startups that will build on their platform, or do they want to build their own software tools and directly integrate? I think for now, the answer is probably yes, as they're trying to sort of figure out what that means. And, since I started with them, I'll pick on them first, and I'll say that they are probably winding themselves through the journey of, wow, healthcare is a really big market, let's jump in. And then somewhere in those first early stages of the journey, one realizes that, a little bit more complicated, more nuanced. I've gotten to row 6,000 and realized there's a lot of people to integrate with. And I think they're going to have to make a decision soon of how deep they really want to get into the vertical, or whether they want to be sort of a supplier to it. Some of the other ones that you mentioned, I think they're such big organizations that they also subdivide. So Amazon, it's hard to talk about them as one thing. AWS and our approach towards using AWS, we're big fans and we're big users of AWS, I think is sort of one category. Amazon has made a few moves and sort of, it's been alluded to a bunch of moves in terms of how they may play a role in the supply chain. For all of the big tech vendors that are talking about disrupting, I have to say personally, I can't wait for Amazon to disrupt the supply chain. I think it's one of those things that will benefit health systems, providers, and ultimately patients by bringing down costs. There's an awful lot of people that touch things on their way to the patient, and there's an awful lot of cost that gets added to that. With no inside fantastical knowledge, I would say that Amazon would be great in the DME space. They would be great in sort of some of those areas that, traditionally, needed some disruption. Obviously, there's lots of rumors with their PillPack acquisition and what they may do in sort of the PBM space, but I think that's sort of, wide open. And then the third category for Amazon is around, what they're doing with voice and Alexa, and I think that sort of represents sort of another area. And then, finally, some pretty exciting announcements from them around medical comprehend and what they may do in sort of NLP. So, it's different strategies with different things. But what we're trying to do is get focused on the things that we can make use of right now. And probably everybody likes the word, so I'll use it. The best disruption that we can take advantage of with Amazon right now is really leveraging as much as we can in the cloud. And frankly, in that area, it's not even the most exciting things. Some of our biggest projects in the cloud is to look at the myriad of legacy systems we have that we have to maintain for various regulatory reasons or other sort of complicated scenarios, and seeing if we can sort of move those and just reduce the cost of operating. So, it varies. And similar sort of story with Google, similar story with Apple, similar story with Facebook, and on and on and on.
Yeah, they are really big companies, and you have all the benefits of the scale and the resources that they're bringing, but you also have they're big companies and they're silent. For all the appearance from the outside that it's a single entity growing in the same direction. Anytime you put 100,000 people in an organization, they tend to form silos and head off in different directions. So sometimes it can be hard to navigate those companies and how you get the best results out of them. I mean, that's been my experience. Has that been your experience as well?
Absolutely. And I think that, frankly, a lot of times these companies are coming to market in as much of an experimentation mode as early stage companies. And we sometimes just confuse, because they're so big and because they're so well capitalized, that they must know everything. And I think that, they have an amazing capacity to learn and to invest resources. but they're very much sort of feeling their way around the ecosystem. And I think the interesting part is that those vendors that are in healthcare and sort of the anchor tenants of the HIMSS floor that we were referring to, they've long learned that healthcare is not one thing. And that, it might be easy to say that it's this trillion-dollar market that you're going to sort of enter, but you start by dividing it into pharma and payers and providers, and then we love to focus on the provider side, but then you take the provider side and you put it into hospitals and sort of the rest of the system. Then you take a look at hospitals and you split out academics and you split sort of the community hospitals. And then if that wasn't bad enough, you have to start looking at sort of what core systems they have, and they'll have a different IT approach if they're an Epic shop or a Cerner shop or a Meditech shop or an Athena shop. And so, the hard thing for these companies is they're used to launching businesses that move in big blocks and are $1 billion in market size and, can move their needle. Once you start breaking it down, I think that what they start to realize is that it's not always as interesting as it appeared. And while they still maybe want to play a role, I think that they often realize there's maybe a better role for them to step back and have other companies sort of work on their platforms in their ecosystem.
Yeah, so you've been one of the, I'm sorry, I'm going after this easy stuff to talk about, but you said supply chain for Amazon, and I think, yeah, core competency, that's, if they were to ask 100 healthcare leaders, hey, can we help you with this space? They would probably get a response of, yeah, if you would attack this, that would be great. But I feel the same thing's true on the consumer experience side with Apple. And you've been one of the early adopters for Apple, one of the early supporters of almost just about everything they've done in terms of the watch, in terms of the medical record and the things they're doing, those kind of things. But if we could focus Apple on the experience, on being able to remove the friction, I mean, I think that would be the area for them. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's no doubt in my mind that, the expertise and prowess that they have in, consumer experience and understanding how to sort of delight their customers is something that we could and should take full advantage of. But at the same time, you can't get lost in the fact that, what Apple is really good at, and, my sense of what they want to do more of, is figure out how to apply that to consumer tools. I think the rumors of, Jim Cramer shared with us that Apple was going to buy Epic. I doubt they have, besides the fact that Epic will never sell, as many of your listeners will well know, I don't think Apple has any interest whatsoever in jumping into deep enterprise software space. I think that they recognize their gift is how to serve the consumer. And I think that they're going to add a patina and series of functionality around that, frankly, I think their personal health record is a great example of that. And, they'll probably continue to thrive in that area.
Yeah, Kramer's staff should have been, when I read that for the first time, they should have been smacked. All it would have taken was a single phone call to anybody within health IT, and they would say, look, if the leaders of that company, they're not going to sell. That's number one. And number two, name an enterprise application, enterprise software solution that Apple really has done well with. And that has not been their focus since Steve Jobs came back. It has always been on the consumer and on that experience, and what can we do at the consumer. So that was fascinating.